So our first speakers, industry leader, influencer industry leader, Brad Hoos is going to be speaking. He's also the CEO of the Outloud Group, along with special guest Mike Benedosso, who's involved in strategy and partnerships for influencer agencies at YouTube. And they're going to be talking to us about unlocking the power of YouTube influencer campaigns for your brands. So give a warm welcome for Brad and Mike.
Thank you, Deanna. It's great to be here today. Yeah, really excited about chatting with you guys for a few minutes. I am Brad Hoos. I'm the CEO of the Outloud Group, leading influencer agency, and really excited to be joined with Mike Benedosso of YouTube here.
All right, just going to introduce myself. I'm Mike. I'm from YouTube. I lead our partnerships and strategy for influencer marketing agencies, as Brad had just mentioned there. I'm very excited to talk today about how you can really accelerate and supercharge your influencer marketing campaigns on YouTube in Brooklyn's own and finest meat freezer. Everyone doing good? Everyone bring a nice fur coat to warm yourself up. So just to give you a little clarity on why we support influencer agencies like Outloud Group, including a couple others in the crowd today, is that we are focused on supporting, empowering our creators. It's our lifeblood. It's the engine that keeps the car going at YouTube. And so anything we do that can power them is beneficial to the entire ecosystem. And so our thesis is by powering and supporting Outloud Group, we can then thereby support our creators. So when I think about how Brad and I work together, I envision ourselves as, you know, the duo of Tenacious D ripping out some nasty licks, improving the creator ecosystem. Our parents see us as sort of like a Batman-Robin duo, you know, saving the day one cat video at a time. But mostly, realistically, we're more just like Danny DeVito, Arnold Schwarzenegger. We forgot our white matching suits, but, you know, you can envision them. All right, so Brad is actually going to cover, and myself are going to cover answering 3 questions. What's the best way to set up your influencer marketing campaign? Number 2, what success metrics and KPIs should you track? And number 3 is what's most important about boosting your influencer organic content with paid media? So to cover the first question, I'm going to pass it over to Brad.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mike. Well, at the Outloud Group, we work with a lot of awesome brands. I know there's a few of you here. Thanks for coming out. And one of the things that's really interesting about influencer marketing is that a lot of times brands still don't really know what they're trying to do. So I can count on more than one hand times over the course of the last 2 years where we've had brands reach out and say, our board wants us to be on TikTok, so we need to run a TikTok campaign. To which my response is always, cool, we can do that, but the most important question is why, right? What are you trying to do with your influencer marketing? And once you have an understanding of that, then you can try to make some things happen. So, you know, the biggest blessing and curse of influencer marketing is that it's a full funnel program. So sure, we run a lot of campaigns focused on conversion. We run a lot of campaigns focused on branding. But no matter what you're focusing on, the value really comes full funnel. And so a lot of organizations are structurally challenged where you might have a growth or performance or direct response team and then a branding team. But to really optimize influencer in 2024, you need to be really clear up front around what you're trying to do and then be willing to recognize the value that happens across the funnel. Again, you might be only focused on one of those, but there's value that's created across the entire influencer funnel, and that's something that's really important. So regardless of what your objective is going to be, when you're running an influencer program, what you don't want to do is a one-rat study. Right? You don't want to run with one creator and then say, yeah, we tried influencer marketing and it didn't work. And what you really want to do is make sure you're testing with sort of a portfolio of influencers. And a lot of times we're looking at we're looking at different verticals. We're looking at different size creators and trying to understand what worked. Something got messed up with this slide here, so probably ignore the arrows and shapes. But the whole gist of it is test with a number of creators, see what works, and then do more of what works. So reinvest in those long-term relationships like we always hear about with creators, and then continue to learn about what are the common traits of those creators who are effective. And so for us at Outloud, the way we go about doing this together with our brand partners is first to make sure we really understand what the goals are. We need to document those because there's so many different times where at the beginning of a campaign we'll hear something along the lines of, well, we really want to impact the brand, but obviously we're just going to be measured on conversion at the end of the day. It's like, well, we need to make sure we're getting clarity up front on that. And one of the ways we do that is with step 2 up here is really trying to understand, okay, let's map out some very high-level different creative ideas, put it on a 2x2, and work together with our brand partners to see what really resonates in terms of what we want to do. And then once we get some alignment on that and we get some real understanding, we want to have 2 parts of a strategy that's documented. So first part of the strategy is what are we going to be doing in the near term, right? What's the platform? What's the creative that we want to go after? And secondly is what's our midterm plan? So what are we going to be doing over the next 5 months? Because we're not running a test with these creators in a vacuum, right? This is part of a broader strategy. Now, you may adjust that strategy, and you probably should in most cases as you learn more, but you want to go into it having a clear plan. And then from there, we really dive into the creative, right? Really make sure we have creative concepts that creators are going to be excited about. And by all means, let creators do their thing as opposed to give them a script. And then the final thing is execution, 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 right? To execute influencer campaigns is really challenging. It takes a lot of legwork. It takes a lot of understanding of different pitfalls, and then really look at, a post-campaign and reporting analytics. And we'll get into those metrics here in a second. But one of the things that we see is that there is a lot when it comes to influencer marketing, right? It can be really hard to understand what should your strategy be. I mean, shoot, if you say, hey, we want to be on Instagram, what does that even mean? Reels, stories, carousels, videos, static post, RIP to IGTV. But there's a lot of things you need to think about. So we could spend 2 hours here talking about the different strategies for why you're on different platforms. We are here over the next couple of days, so feel free to come and join us. But I just want to point out there are definite pros and cons to different platforms. So for instance, one of the great things about podcast is that it's not part of a walled garden with like YouTube or Meta, but you can actually drop a pixel and then you can track what's happened after someone has downloaded a podcast. That's a powerful strength of podcasts. And we are at the Youth Marketing Summit focused on Gen Z. So let's talk about Gen Z for a second. So when it comes to Gen Z, first of all, they hate to be sold to. They love being part of a niche community that they've decided and chosen to be a part of. And they want to hear about ways that you're enhancing that community or how the creator is really using your product and service to do something that's meaningful. No one wants to hear an advertisement. And one of the things that I find really interesting too is that when people hear Gen Z, so many people immediately think about TikTok. The number one platform in terms of time spent on it for Gen Z is not TikTok, it's YouTube. YouTube has a massive power when it comes to Gen Z, and also it has trust, right? There's obviously a lot of things going on, and one of the big pros for YouTube is that it's not being talked about in the news over the course of the last week, right? It's very much a trusted platform with a ton of opportunity. So with that said, I'll let Mike dive into a little more detail.
Yeah, and so Brad mentioned a few other platforms. We all know that YouTube is the best, right? I don't have
Obviously.
to say it. Yeah, so applause you can reserve your applause for later. But why we value our creators on YouTube and why brands are so successful in affecting influencer campaigns on YouTube is because the trust that Brad mentioned between the creators in their communities of fans. YouTube is not just a one-way conversation. It is a place where creators view a home to cultivate deep, meaningful relationships. It's why someone like Mr. Beast can scale a chocolate bar, Feastables, to 10,000 Walmart stores. It's why Outloud's talent, Mark Rober, can sell a bunch of Crunch Labs subscription services because they have this deep connection with their fans, with their communities, and that they're not just influencers, they're actually trusted friends that provide recommendations, and this trust translates directly into action. And it's not just older folks like me and Brad who are citing these stats and this data. Every survey that we do, every data point that shows that Gen Z has these deep, meaningful connections with creators on YouTube as well. And that's really because we've done a lot of work at YouTube to make creating most rewarding on our platform, whether it's creatively, financially, emotionally, giving creators more ways to make more money, giving them more outlets to flex their creative muscles, giving them more opportunities to build those connections with communities. So as Brad mentioned, I can spend probably 2 hours really drilling deep into specific tactical advice you can employ for your influencer campaigns. But if I were to take a step back and zoom out and really distill it down to 4 big points, it really comes down to these 4. Number 1, find the right fit, find the right creators. Brad will go into sort of like the data metrics that he looks at and he analyzes to make that optimal matchmaking. But the biggest error I see that brands make is that they look at something like a vanity metric like subscription count and think that's going to translate into action. It's not true. It's not always the case. You really want to look at what the audience is. You want to maintain the authenticity between the creator, the brand, the messaging, and the fans. Number 2, really prioritize creative collaboration between the brand and or the agency and or the creator. The creators know their communities. The communities know the voice of their creators. So this is the hardest part that brands have to sort of deal with, is letting go of the wheel. Let the creators drive. Let them author. Give them guidelines, but no scripts. Thirdly, the best, most effective influencer campaigns on YouTube are the ones that have like a varied distribution strategy where it's very focused on multi-format. They have shorts, they have long form, they have shopping integrations, which I'll get into in a little bit. They have boosted paid media. Those are the ones where we see significant uplift across all the KPIs. And then we're going to get into this a little bit more, but set realistic expectations with the creators. You're not going to get 100% conversions. Understand what your goals are. Formulate the campaign around those goals, and then make sure that they're really specific, measurable, and accurate. So I'm going to pass it to Brad to jump into that section a little bit more.
All right, yeah, let's talk metrics, right? So on this slide, there's a YouTube logo, so it's kind of for YouTube, but honestly, the principles for this apply for any social media platform. So let's walk through this. So you're consuming content as a consumer on the platform, again, whatever it is, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, obviously YouTube's the best. And as you're consuming that content as marketers, we're trying to measure is what's the efficiency of those views, right? What are we paying for 1,000 views? And then are people engaging with the content, right? Like, shares, comments, important stuff. And then now people are moving from the social media platform over to your brand's website generally. And what we see here is that we want to measure what's the number of people that are going to your website, what's the ratio of people from viewing on the platform to your website, and then how much time are they spending on your website? How many pages are they looking at? Really, we want to get a good proxy for what's the quality of this traffic. And I think the most straightforward piece is the conversion, right? What's the number of customers that you're getting? What's the conversion rate that's happening on your website? But I want to draw your attention to that bottom one, right? That says customer LTV, because I think this is the most underutilized mainstream metric when it comes to influencer marketing, and that is when customers come to a brand through influencer, they typically stay much longer than a customer that's acquired in general. And the reason for that is they're coming from a state of trust, right? Like they trust the influencer. They've seen them do cool stuff. A lot of times brands have long-term partnerships with these influencers. So as an audience, you continue to see that influencer use the product more and more and more. And you say, oh, that's part of my herd. That's part of my community, right? And so that's a huge reason for that. But I want to dive into these little dashed lines up here, right? This unattributable piece, because we all know that it happens. You're watching a video on the subway on the way to work, and then 2 days later, in the middle of the night, you're woken up by a strange noise, and what do you know? The next morning, you go directly to simplysafe.com and buy a home security service because you were freaked out, and you don't necessarily go back and track down that URL. So one of the things that has been challenging for us for a long time is, well, what is that dashed line? So we partnered with Avast, the largest online security provider, and did a clickstream data study, so anonymized, aggregated data, where we looked at over 150,000 people that had looked at branded content on YouTube for 3 different brands. And what we carried this out over a period of 6 months. So we tracked everyone's performance after watching this content for 6 months. But the data we're presenting is only for what happened the first week after consuming that content. And what we found is that for every one person who used either the vanity URL or the promo code, there was actually 4 total conversions. Again, we saw this information because we got to observe behaviors because we had access to that data through a clickstream data study. So we got this, through the end user approving it as opposed to any platform. And so this is really powerful to see and understand. And by the way, I mentioned podcast earlier. Podcast can drop a pixel, and that ratio is remarkably similar across podcast and YouTube. So we see a lot of similarities there. And the number's even stronger and more powerful when it comes to sessions, right? So for every one session using that vanity URL, we actually saw 6 total sessions that were directed to a brand's website for consumers that saw a YouTube influencer integration. So, Mike, a lot of people confuse Mike for Warren Buffett. He's not, but he's an amazing guy nevertheless. One of Warren Buffett's quotes is, right, price is what you pay, value is what you get. So let's talk about both. Let's talk about both when it comes to influencer. So there's a lot going on in this graph. What you're looking at here is the cost of doing a YouTube integration in 2023, white bar 2022 white bar compared to the blue bar in 2023. So this is the first time we've released this proprietary data from the Outloud group, and what this shows is that the price of YouTube integrations across a lot of verticals has gone down. And in fact, these numbers will go down further because 2022 data has a whole extra year to accrue views on YouTube compared to 2023. But the important thing here is that good news, prices are declining a bit. And what we see with influencers who are decentralized media companies, their prices tend to go down a little bit slower because you have the personal emotional piece of it where it's like, well, I got paid $10,000 last year. I don't really want to get paid $8,000 this year. Versus more programmatic platforms like podcast, we actually see they're way more responsive to what market pricing is. So there's good news here that we see now is a pretty good time to be able to get in from a price perspective. But where we really try to focus is the value, right? So I hear you hear a lot of times like, oh, we want engagement. Cool, engagement's great. Like, shares, comments, saves, whatever. We like that. But what we really care about and what we find most of our brands really care about is engagement measured by how have these creators historically done in terms of driving traffic to our website? How have these creators historically done in terms of actually driving conversions, right? This is a proxy for trust. To what extent does the audience trust the creator? And just like if you're going to go to a restaurant, you want to look at historically what's happened. What are the Yelp reviews? What do the Google reviews say, right? How many stars? We're looking at historical performance to gauge something that's going to happen in the future. So we do the exact same thing, right? As an influencer agency at scale, we've been around for 17 years. We have a lot of data on our creators. And so our entire team has access to this. This is basically Yelp for creators. And so what we look at is how have these creators done historically? When you see the x-axis, that's on a cost per acquisition basis. We normalize, because every different brand is going to have a different CPA. And the best performing creator for a brand, they're going to be at the 100th percentile. The worst is going to be at the 0 percentile. And then on the y-axis, you see CPM, right? So what are you paying for a view? And this gives us a tremendous advantage when it comes to being able to identify creators who are likely to perform for your brand in the future. So we've seen these creators perform at high levels historically for brands, and that gives us the best understanding of what's likely to happen in the future. And that's really where value is created here. Okay, so covered 2 questions. On to the third and final question, which is really around, hey, how does paid fit into influencer programs? So just from a high-level view, sort of platform agnostic, like when do you want to get into paid programs? So number one, if you're really focused on conversions or performance, we see that paid can be very effective, and it can really help you in terms of getting that incremental attributable traffic or purchase. Secondly is if you're using celebrities or you have something that's highly produced, folks that may not have a massive social media following, then you really want to put paid behind whatever you're doing to make sure it's getting that reach to really be effective. Third thing is if the creator's content sort of run its course, but you think this is really relevant, so you want to extend the period of time, paid is great. And fourth, obviously, paid just creates some pretty massive scale.
And we're getting the bell, we're getting the light. We're going a little late, so I'll speed up a little bit at the end here. But if you take anything away from the value of boosting your organic content, it's this right here. It's while organic content is vital, it's critical to boost so you can extend your reach and measure the impact. So 3 big components to boosting is amplifying your reach, making sure you get outside of the communities of the creators, controlling your reach with hyper-targeted sort of ads and placements, and then measuring that reach with granular insights so that you can optimize your next campaign when you iterate. One thing that we've been developing internally at YouTube right now is something called creator promotions. This enables brands and agencies to take organic content from a creator and then plug it into the Google Ads machine so that you can scale it broadly across the YouTube ecosystem so that I can see it as a viewer natively into my feed. I can click on it. It drives traffic to the creator's page at the timestamp of the sponsored content, and hopefully will drive more traffic to conversions. Really excited about that. We're also really excited about a new YouTube shopping product where we actually make the conversion process from viewing a video, seeing a product, and then clicking on it to purchase much more efficient, much more fluid, much more easy for the consumers and the viewers. And so when you couple and package everything together, here's what effective influencer marketing looks like on YouTube. You have really optimal creators, match made by some really sophisticated data that someone like Outloud has sort of offered for you, created the content, put it on their channel, add in shopping integrations like our new YouTube shopping affiliate products so that people can buy very fluidly, and then boost it outside of the range, measure, optimize, and then iterate. And then you can see the KPIs that we track on our side that can sort of designate whether you're successful or not.
All right, so Mike and I kind of get a chance to chat about 3 different things, right? So with respect to strategy, don't let your board of directors dictate what your influencer strategy should be. Really understand what the why is, and then think hard about what's the right way to activate with influencers. It's 2024, y'all. Like, data has to be a part of your marketing strategy. It certainly needs to be a part of your influencer marketing strategy in terms of identifying the best creators and also in terms of being able to report out quantitatively the value of those campaigns. And of course, remember that Danny DeVito told Arnold Schwarzenegger that boosting is very important. So that's one thing that we hope you keep on your mind. Certainly, Mike and his team do amazing work, a fantastic platform at YouTube. And at Outloud, we really help to work with the strategy and manage all the services. piece. So, if you have any questions or want to talk further, please reach out to us. My personal email's up here. If you want to schedule a free consult with us as well, you can use this QR code, and then we're also here and have a booth over the next couple of days. So I think we might have time for one or two questions. Yeah. So if anyone has any questions, yes. I see a hand up here.
Hello, thank you so much for the panel. My name is Julian Andrew. I'm the founder of Talentish. It's a talent management company. We represent LGBTQ plus creators and celebrity talent that fit within the BIPOC communities as well. Mike, you're great. Love you. Thank you for being our growth strategist. My question is around the organic boosting of creator content from the brand's perspective. Can you just talk or walk us through a little bit about what that process is like, and if there is, I'm hoping, a kickback to the creator, and is the creator also on the back end approving that before it is boosted? Yeah.
Great question. Hey, Julian. How's it going? Great to see you. I didn't know you were going to be here. That's awesome. So when usually what happens is when the brand strikes a deal with a creator, there is some language in the SOW or in the contract that says they reserve the right to basically license that content so they can help boost it with paid media on the platform itself. And so usually the creator signs off on that. In terms of payment, there's usually no payment additional or addendum to that, because what you're doing is driving traffic back to the creators, so it benefits them in the end. So sort of like secondarily with their AdSense revenue, there's more traffic driving to them. But yeah, I mean, what we've seen is like get outside of the ecosystem of that creator's followers, but do audience matchmaking so that like maybe they're tangential or adjacent creators and followings and communities that maybe are not aware of that creator. And so paid media is a great way to like penetrate those communities, get the creator on their radar, but also make sure they're aware of the product that the creator is sort of recommending to their audiences. So usually what it works is the brand usually has like a media agency, or they have a direct reserve bid sort of process with Google directly, and they can sort of pay for the paid media that way. Not sure if that answers your question, but if it doesn't, yeah, thanks. Yeah. All right, I think that's it. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate the time.